Let's start today's episode.
Welcome back, besties. Today we have a culmination episode of Katie and I ranting about doctor visits in the last 6 months, and we've decided to give you a red flags episode. Things that we have seen in doctors, both recently and in the past, that are very clear red flags that this may not be the doctor for you. This may be thank you very much and leave, and then just never make that follow-up appointment with them and find somebody else. Or maybe have a conversation with them, depending on maybe where you are in your cycle and your capacity for dealing with the stress of a hard conversation. So if you are seeing any of these red flags, keep in mind that you don't have to stick with the doctor that you're seeing, and there are other options out there. And we're going to kick it off with your doctor is telling you to go on birth control. Now, we're also talking in general women's specialists, OB-GYNs, people in our field, right? So when the first answer, whatever your symptoms are, maybe you're skipping periods, maybe you're having problem periods, whatever it is, their first answer is to put you on birth control. Red flag. There are so many steps between hey, I'm coming in for this issue and birth control, that if in your first session with them, there's not a lot of anything else and it's just straight into the birth control conversation, that's a red flag. That's a doctor who doesn't know any better or has no interest in figuring out what's actually going on with you. And they just want to put you on a prescription and get you out of the office.
Yes, and being told that birth control has both estrogen and progesterone in it. So it's great for perimenopause and beyond, where just to clear it up, if you've been told that birth control, estrogen, and progestin, which is a synthetic form of progesterone, and that actually causes inflammation. And in perimenopause, you're already in a more inflamed state. We do not want to add another layer of inflammation on top of that. So that's also something to be really mindful about with birth control. And recently, I was told I should go on birth control because I could still get pregnant because I'm still having regular periods, and as a way to prevent getting pregnant. And I was basically saying, I track my cycle, I track ovulation, I'm doing all these things. And there are other things that you can do besides going on birth control if you're trying to prevent pregnancy, in any age of your life, but especially in late perimenopause, menopause, when we really want to bring that inflammation down. We always should be trying to bring down inflammation, but it just becomes more of a metabolic syndrome issue as we're going through that hormonal change.
Yeah, I've had doctors throughout my life tell me that birth control will balance my hormones. Well, that's not what birth control does. It doesn't balance your hormones, it shuts your hormones off. So if you have a doctor who is saying things like it's the same hormones, it balances your hormones, they're sadly not educated about what the birth control pill is. And considering they're probably giving it to every single client, patient, it's should be embarrassing, frankly, to them, but here we are. So yeah, birth control is a big red flag, and it can be for anything. I mean, it could be you went in because you're having painful periods. It could be because you're PCOS, right? You're skipping cycles, but you're young still. There's no reason for it to be perimenopause, but it could be. Like there's a lot of things that it could be. So if their answer is just blanket statement birth control, or they're saying anything about it balancing your hormones or anything like that, and if they're not telling you potential side effects of birth control, like if they're going to prescribe something, anything, if any doctor ever prescribes you anything, the next question out of your mouth should be, what are the potential side effects? What am I looking for? Birth control has a ton of side effects, and they affect a lot of people. This isn't like the 1% of people who get a blood clot and die, which, I don't know what the number actually is, but it's a small, very small percentage. But there's a lot of side effects to birth control, and it affects a lot of people. It's like saying you have PMS. Well, 90% of people have PMS for some a little mood swing, a little fatigue, something, right? Same thing with birth control. There's a lot of side effects and they affect a lot of people. So you want to be aware of what you're looking for and what symptoms that may be coming up from birth control that you don't want or don't like. And it's probably not the answer. It is the answer for some people, absolutely, for some people, from birth control to dealing with period problems. But by and large, most of us, there is a better answer out there than birth control that has no side effects. So if your doctor is going right there, that's number one, because that's the thing Katie and I see in our practices all the time. And of course, it's something that she and I have listened to our doctors say to us for a long time. And we're like, oh God, no, that's not true.
Yes. We've also interviewed Ricky Lake and Abby Epstein, who created the documentary, The Business of Birth Control, and her colleague Greg Spall. And she wrote the book, Sweetening the Pill. If you are looking for just more information and just kind of getting in the know and more research and exact numbers, like those are really good resources for you to look into as well.
Yeah, amazing shout out. Those are both in our first season. So if you head back to our first season, you can listen to both of their interviews. They're back to back for sure. So, okay, you're a woman, you're in the doctor's office. I bet you have heard something about your weight, BMI, weight gain, lose weight, something about weight when it comes to your health. Most of us have heard some version of, well, if you lose a couple of pounds, then you probably won't have this problem. That's a red flag. I just want to say at the top of this that weight is a systemic issue in our society. It is something that we are told that our value, our absolute worth as a human being is tied to a number on a scale or a number in a clothing rack aisle, and that is absolutely ridiculous and shouldn't be. And there is definitely health issues that come up with weight, but also I know people who classify as morbidly obese who are 100% healthy, like physically fit, swim, do all sorts of things, have amazing numbers when they come back from the doctors. So there's certain things that, yeah, weight can be a part of the problem or part of a conversation when it comes to our overall health. But if that's what your doctor is defaulting to, that's lazy. That's a lazy doctor, unless it's literally part of a process, something that's really a problem, something disordered eating pattern, in which case you need somebody who specializes in therapy for disordered eating. But boy, when they go to the BMI right out of the gate, I mean, the BMI is not even a thing.
It's so outdated. And when it was created, it was based on young men, like 20 to 23, I believe, young white men who, I mean, women in general never fit into that category of BMI because usually, quote unquote, that BMI range and what looking at athletic men at that point, they're lanky, they're tall, like there's no body fat whatsoever. So to be judged against that, especially as we're getting older and going through different hormonal changes, is so frustrating. And we should be concerned about our waist circumference. That is really important because that is in tune with our metabolic health and metabolic syndrome, but that plays a small role in also what's going on with our insulin and cholesterol and all of those other things. But BMI will never, ever going to fit into that. We never did. We never will. And it's so, so outdated. It drives me insane because we hold our weight in our belly. We need fat actually around our organs. So in general, we actually biologically have more fat around our organs because we are the ones that are carrying life and creating life and all of that. So we actually live longer than the male species because of that, just a FYI. And our BMI was, you could be tallest, skinniest person and still not have that BMI make any sense in terms of women's health.
Yeah, I hate it. And just keep in mind as well when you go to the doctors, you can have them weigh you and turn around. Like you don't have to see the number on the scale.
I did that my entire pregnancy until the morning of my C-section because I was like, what's been going on? But yeah. And I don't have a scale in my house. I never weigh myself. So that's kind of like when I do go to the doctor, I'm always like just curious, like checking in, but you don't have to look. I feel like it always puts me into a spiral no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, the doctor I go to now, their scale is in kilograms, and I swear they did it so that you wouldn't be able to look at the number and immediately know. Like you have to go Google kilograms to pounds.
That's so smart.
Yeah, except that I have a husband who grew up in Europe. So when I get on the scale, they're like, what is that? I think he lies to
Sure.
me a little bit, which would be nice. But yeah, they have a policy that they have to weigh everybody every time they come in, even for follow-up appointment. So I will look at that number, but not every visit, only like once a year or so.
Yeah.
And then
Why
scaling.
do they? Why do they weigh you at every single doctor's appointment? Like, no matter what, like if I go to the cardiologist, if the endocrinologist, like when I was having really bad migraines and I was going to the neurologist, like, why do they weigh you at every single doctor's appointment?
I'm gonna guess it's like an insurance thing that because my
Mm,
doctor was like, oh yeah, because I go, I can't believe I have to get weighed every time. Like I was just here a month ago. I'm just coming in for a follow-up for a prescription to see how it's going. And I'm getting weighed. And she's like, oh yeah, we have to do weight, we have to do blood pressure, and we have to do temperature every single time you come in because, oh, that's right. She told me because they occasionally will have an emergency and so knowing all of the most current data in case like they had had somebody collapse, like my appointment was late because somebody had collapsed in the office
oh,
and they had to stop all the appointments and get him into an ambulance and over to the like at the actual hospital, not just like the
like
little
in terms of
clinic.
medication, drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. I do remember her because I was like, why are they doing that? She was like, well, because every now and then we have a patient collapse and we have to have all of their information as, up to date. And I was like, okay. She goes, but you can turn around. You don't have to look. I was like, yeah, I'm
Well, I
not.
mean, that makes at least that's a logical explanation that makes sense that I can just keep in the back of my mind and not think
Yeah.
about and turn around and all of that. And we're going to have a deeper discussion on the history of all of this and how it really does affect women because it's way more than just a red flag. It's been ingrained in our
Oh, yeah.
psyche. Even as we were talking about it before we hit record, I was like, oh, I guess I haven't really thought about that in a while. But yeah, you're right. We
Yeah.
grew up this way.
Weight is just a really loaded conversation and it's nuanced, and we have issues with nuance in our society these days. But yeah, we definitely need to do an entire episode on weight. So if you're listening and you have questions or thoughts or comments and you'd like to see us answer them or talk about them, we're going to do an episode on weight down the line. So feel free to shoot us anything that you want on that topic so that we can bring it in. It's probably going to be I don't know, I foresee it being like a 3-part series. It's such a big
Probably.
topic.
It is such a big topic. Are you feeling exhausted, moody, bloated, and irritable? I can help you. Thriving, my 12-week group program for perimenopause and beyond, starts Monday, May 5th. It's community plus personalized support to help you create the diet and lifestyle foundations that are necessary during perimenopause and menopause. Together, you will start to feel energized and nourished so you can juggle work and family life during this challenging time of your life. Would love to have you join us. Link in the show notes for more details. All right. So the third red flag,
Yeah.
not testing. Okay. I love talking about symptoms. I love going through a health history. I love having all of the cycle tracking, syncing, charting data. Like the more information, the better. But testing and having real solid information that you can take the symptoms with the data to figure out what's really going on, root cause, is essential. It's so, so important. And we hear all the time your hormones fluctuate every single day. So it's not really worth the testing. And we call that a red flag because, yes, your hormones do change every day, but it's not like you go one day and your estrogen, I don't know, I'm going to say like a 40, and the next day it's a 100.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is a pattern. And even during perimenopause, when your estrogen is going up and down, it's an erratic pattern, but there's still a pattern. And it's so important to have data. I mean, I have blood work. I have a folder because I still have, before they had everything in the portal, I mean, I have blood work forever ago that I can take with me and really track. I mean, Stash and I are really into this. Like we're really into knowing what our data is and sharing it with doctors, new doctors, all of that. And yeah, like there are things that you can do, like getting your hormones tested on day 3 and also 7 days before your expected period. If you're not having a period, right? Like there's other things that you can do to figure out where you're at and test. So yes, symptoms are important. It's what we work with our clients a lot on, but data is also key. So a big red flag again is if they're not going to do any sort of blood work, and especially just give you birth control, for example, without doing any sort of testing when you're in there for a specific reason. We don't want to mask anything. We really want to go deep and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and blood work's not the end all be all anymore, right? Like there's urine
No,
testing, there's month testing.
sure.
If you're dealing with irregular periods, PCOS, perimenopause, you may want to go ahead and get one of those like month-long testing kits where you do a little pee on a strip every single day for a month. So you
Mhm.
really get to see a wide array of what's going on. If you're dealing with issues, like there's just more options now. And if your doctor doesn't want to test, even if you're like, hey, I'll go order a Dutch test myself, or I'll go order a whatever test and do it myself, which often can be cheaper than blood work with your insurance.
I was just going to say that it's probably like a third of what insurance is charging for blood work.
And it can be better, it can be more comprehensive. So it's like, okay, look, if you have great insurance and it's covering the blood work, get blood work and just get it done regularly so that you have a really nice map. And if you don't, it may be cheaper to actually outsource to one of the other places that does those. There's a lot of apps that do them now. There's a lot of places that do them now. So probably finding one in your area or ordering or whatever, but there's just more options. And if your doctor doesn't want to hear about your tests or follow up with tests and they just want to move you through with no testing, that's a red flag. Your doctor should be the first one to suggest doing blood work, doing tests. It was one of the green flags of my new doctor was that the first thing she did was like, all right, look, we got to, don't even come in. Like, we got to get all of this blood work done before we can have an appointment just to get the lay of the land. I was like, okay, green flag immediately. We should do a green flags episode. Okay, anyway.
Oh, yes. That's like, wait, that should be the next episode.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, if they don't want to test, and it could even be that you have an idea of what's going on. Like maybe you are working with a period coach and you're like, my period coach was saying that she suspects I may have PCOS. Then you should be testing to confirm with your doctor, right? Like you should be testing if you can in any way, shape, or form. And if your doctor is not into it, then maybe you should not be into that doctor.
Yeah. You can always find a new doctor. I think that's one thing that obviously you mentioned at the very beginning, but just reiterating that if you do not trust your doctor, if you don't like your doctor, and this goes into the next red flag, right? Is someone not listening to your symptoms.
Yeah.
You're going in there with a list of I'm exhausted, I have no appetite, I'm not sleeping well, I'm gaining weight, and my diet hasn't changed, whatever your symptoms are. Like my periods are really heavy all of a sudden. I'm like never had cramps in my life and I'm like on the floor, all of it. If they're not listening and or asking follow-up questions for what you're sharing, like that's a big thing.
Yeah.
So
I,
many times you have like what 7-10 minutes and they're not even listening to you. They're just going on like whatever their intention was when they walked into that door.
Yeah. I mean, you should go, hey, look, I've got my list. And they should just be like, all right,
Mhm.
tell me everything. And then there should be a follow-up question or two. Okay, so you're having trouble concentrating. Is that normal? What is that like for you? How is it affecting you? There should be some kind of questions in there if they're actually actively listening, right? This is one of the things where coaches are trained to actively listen versus a doctor.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where, look, Katie and I are not doctors, but we listen, which means we probably have more information than your doctor, which means we probably can do a better job of getting you through this than your doctor. But we want you to go to your doctor so you can get your tests and that you have support and that somebody's on your side on that team too. You need somebody who's going to listen to you, believe you, ask more in-depth questions to really get to understand it. My first training for period coaching students, well, maybe not the first training, but one of the early trainings for period coaching students is red flags. What red flags do you look at their chart? And then what are your questions going to be in that first session? What is on their chart? What are their questions going to be that you're going to ask? And I tell them every time that first session with a new client is very likely going to be just you listening. You're going to ask them, look, I see on your chart that it says you only get a good night's sleep 1 to 2 days a week. You're going to talk about that. It's going to be a whole conversation, right? Like, I see on your intake form that this is what you've been eating. Is there any variation to that? Like, you are going to spend an entire hour with your first client just asking them questions and listening to their answer, and then maybe asking some follow-up questions to those answers. So, if you don't have a doctor that can at least listen to your list when you go in there, red flag.
100%. And that's something that you and I do with our clients all the time, is putting together questions to ask the doctor based on what we have witnessed during our sessions to help them get the next step with a doctor, right? We're not doctors. We're not pretending to be doctors. What's that commercial? Like, we not doctors. We just play doctors on TV. Yeah. And that kind of leads into the last, I mean, we could throw 1,000 red flags out here, but like the fifth last red flag of the day is just not asking about our diet or lifestyle, right? Because so much of how we're moving, how we're thinking, how we're feeling, our sleep, what we're eating, our relationships, stress. Oh my God, right? If we're not having a doctor ask us what's going on holistically, and that's why I love what I do, is because I'm asking all of these like big holistic questions. I know you do as well, but that really gives a much bigger picture than just the data, right? Because the data just gives you a one small slice of what's actually happening day to day, because your data could look fine. And if you feel like shit, what is the connection between those two? Like, what is actually missing? And what should we be focusing on? What do we need more support? What do we need more help with? Because I see that all the time where clients just don't feel good, but their numbers are great. They're quote unquote in range, right? So you and I are those connections between those two, and really helping our clients make those small changes so that they feel better, and vice versa, right? Like, they could be the complete opposite as well. Like, they feel great, but their data doesn't look like they should be feeling good.
Yeah, that was always a perfect example with the thyroid, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
be in the realm of normal, quote unquote, for thyroid, but did they do a full thyroid panel, or are you just at the bottom end of normal? Because if you're at the bottom end of normal, you probably feel like crap, but you're normal. So that's the end of the conversation with your doctor. And that's where it's like, okay, but we can help. We can get you out of that shallow end of the pool where you're feeling like junk even though you're in the pool. So
Mm.
yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, and I've had great doctors who've asked about that, and I've had doctors who had no interest in it at all, except to say, we'll stop eating junk food. And I'm like, I don't eat junk food. And they're like, we'll stop drinking soda. I'm like, I don't drink soda. And they're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
stop I'm like, keep trying, let's see how far you can go.
Keep
So
asking me those questions.
yeah.
Make
So
me feel like I'm not doing enough, even though I'm doing everything.
right. So yeah, you do want to have a doctor that has some concept that diet, lifestyle, supplements, these kinds of things can actually have an effect on your health and your well-being. And it's not part of their training, so they're not going to know a lot about it. But the fact is, they should have at least the concept of like junk food bad, right? So it should be something that if they're talking to you and you're feeling poorly, how is your diet? How is your lifestyle? Is there some kind of crazy amount of stress? How's your sleep? These are very important things that sadly don't see a lot of doctors asking about, but are actually, I've had one, I think, that really asked about that at the beginning of our relationship together, but then I moved. So,
Yeah, my naturopathic doctor always
yeah.
asked me these questions, which I really valued and appreciated and thought was so much more helpful than any other doctor I had worked with when I was going through. Initially, she's the one that discovered the thyroid condition and that it was autoimmune and Hashimoto's. So definitely, because number wise, no one had actually ever ran a full thyroid panel except her, because I kept telling her how tired I was. And she's like, well, we got to do this. And it's like, yeah, we do.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say, if your doctor doesn't jive with you, if you don't feel good in the space with that doctor, trust your gut. If you are in with, like, look, Katie and I both had recent terrible experiences with doctors. I was bawling in that office, crying by the time I was done with it. And the sad thing is that I knew more than her. She wanted to put me on birth control for perimenopause. She was telling me how she's part of the menopause society and all of these things, even though she's going in direct conflict with what they were saying. Like, I was undermined, gaslit, told all of these things, told that no, I couldn't be feeling this way. Just if your doctor doesn't believe you or is arguing with you in the office or is telling you things that you know are untrue or just making you feel small, making you feel poorly, like trying to, what do you do for a living? And I was like, well, I do menstrual cycle education. And she goes, ugh, I don't know what to do with that. Just, you know what? You don't have to go back. And so even if you have no red flags, you just don't like the vibe, trust your gut and just don't go back. Like, you don't have to go to that doctor. You don't have to be committed to them, and you don't have to stay in some place that doesn't feel good for you. If you're trying to heal, if you're trying to be healthy, if you're trying to be well, and you're going to a doctor who makes you feel sick, sad, small, whatever, why? That's not what you're trying to go get better. You can't go to somebody who makes you feel worse to get better. So find somebody that makes you feel better or at least reassures you, right? One of my latest doctors was like, "Oh, we'll figure this out. Let's do this." Like, I need somebody who makes me feel like we're in this. We're going to get it knocked out together, and you deserve that as well. So, any last thoughts, Katie?
I couldn't agree more, honestly. And sometimes you just don't jive with somebody, and that's okay if you just don't get along. It's okay to get a new doctor if you don't trust and feel good. I think that's a really good way to end our conversation today. So thank you all so much for being here. If you have any questions, comments, we'll probably do another red flag episode. So what are your top red flags? What have you noticed as you're navigating your health and trying to get support right now? Let us know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, besties. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.